In 1977, in a book dedicated to the life of Adolf Hitler titled The Psychopathic God, the name Franz von Stuck would appear for the first time associated with the most infamous figure in contemporary history. Robert Waite, the author of the book, popularized his name by mentioning him as the favorite artist of the German dictator. It is documented that his paintings were favored by the National Socialist regime, as his name also appears on the famous Gottbegnadeten Liste, a list compiled in 1944 by the Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, which enumerated the artists he considered representative of the Third Reich and who, in his own words, were endowed with the grace of God. Sculptors, architects, and musicians were included in this list, but among the few painters featured, Franz von Stuck's name stands out. According to Waite, Hitler was a great admirer of his art from a young age. There are even theories suggesting that his own image was modeled after one of von Stuck's paintings, Die wilde Jagd, or The Wild Hunt, in which the Germanic god Wotan is depicted leading an army of the dead. His appearance seems strikingly familiar, but it's not just this detail that makes the theory compelling. Next, we will analyze the works of Franz von Stuck, explore his most famous paintings, and of course, attempt to uncover the reasons why Hitler considered him his favorite painter. Franz von Stuck, the son of a miller, was born in 1863 in the idyllic village of Tettenweiss in southern Germany. From a young age, he showed a deep love for drawing, and despite his social background, he enrolled at the Kunstgewerbeschule, School of Applied Arts, in Munich in 1878. 3 years later, he entered the city's Academy of Fine Arts. As a student, Stuck made a living as an illustrator for magazines and books featuring contemporary allegories. Unlike the art for which he is best known, these early designs followed the academic tradition that Stuck had adopted during his training. In this video, I won't go into much detail about the artist's life, as there is already a video on the channel where I explore his biography in more depth. If you'd like to watch it, you'll find the link in the description. In this video, we will focus more on his artwork. In the late 1880s, Franz von Stuck entered the symbolist movement with his painting The Guardian of Paradise, which he presented at the annual exhibition of the Crystal Palace in Munich in 1889. For him, it was the confirmation of his artistic vision. He had to wait 26 years to receive a gold medal for his talent and a substantial sum of money that allowed him to live modestly while also attracting the attention of many critics. The Guardian of Paradise marked a break from the art favored by the Academy and the widely popular peasant genre of the time. With this painting, Stuck aligned himself with the soul-stirring imagery seen in the works of Max Klinger and Arnold Böcklin, whom we will also discuss later. In this artwork, the biblical cherub designated by God to guard the entrance to paradise is transformed into the ideal of an androgynous youth, embodying the notion of a being elevated above humanity. In the background, the colors burst forth to depict paradise as an ethereal realm beyond visible reality. A beautiful painting, highly praised by the public, but in my opinion, not his greatest masterpiece. Franz von Stuck was the painter of dark reveries, carnal pleasures, lust, sin, and fierce eroticism. Perhaps this is why he was also called the Prince of Painting. He poured his entire sensual imagination into devilish nudes that, in a way, sought to mock the most important codes of Christian thought. A prime example of this is the Sin. This painting presents one of the most recurring symbolic figures in late 19th century art, the femme fatale, a seductive and wicked woman whose charm can physically and morally destroy her victim. In this piece, von Stuck depicted the suggestive bare torso of a woman illuminated by a spectral light, while the rest of her body remains in shadow, except for her face, which turns toward the viewer in the midst of darkness. The enormous serpent coiling around the woman's body is chilling, its head resting ominously on her chest. The reptile's gaze is defiant, as if ready to strike. just as the seductive woman stares at and ensnares her prey. The analogy with biblical texts is striking, for in the Old Testament, the serpent, symbolizing evil, seduces the naive Eve into taking the forbidden fruit. However, in this painting, it is the woman herself who personifies evil. The sin embodied in the femme fatale is expressed by the artist in a style far removed from classical academicism, using bold contrasts of light and darkness and a clear intention to place the viewer in the ever-captivating position of a voyeur, one who delights in observing vice and lust without intervening in the action. Von Stuck was so fond of this theme that he created nearly a dozen versions of this painting, almost identical to each other. However, this one is my favorite. Let me know in the comments which one you like best. To understand why this artist was so admired by Adolf Hitler, it is necessary to analyze not only his pictorial style, but also the artistic movement to which he belonged, symbolism. Although I recently uploaded a video dedicated to this movement, in short, symbolism emerged as an artistic movement that opposed realism and impressionism, distancing itself from the direct representation of the external world to explore the human soul, spirituality, and mythology. In their work, symbolists relied on dreamlike imagery, allegories, and mythological figures to represent psychological states, abstract ideas, and internal conflicts. Franz von Stuck fit perfectly within this movement. His paintings conveyed a world of intense emotions, eroticism, mysticism, and fatalism, with an aesthetic that emphasized dramatic chiaroscuro, rigid figures, and the tension between light and darkness. These characteristics made his paintings evoke an aura of tragic grandeur and destiny, elements that Hitler appreciated in art. The German dictator was not only a frustrated painter, but also a passionate art enthusiast with a very specific conception of what it should represent. To him, art had to exalt the greatness of man, tragic destiny, heroic struggle, and nationalistic spirit. This is where Franz von Stuck comes into play. His work was filled with mythological figures and archetypes of power, especially those drawn from Germanic tradition. The already mentioned painting Die Wilde Jagd, or Wild Hunt, forgive me if my German is not the best, is the clearest example of this. In it, the central figure is Wotan, the Germanic equivalent of Odin, depicted with an uncannily similar appearance to the one Hitler would adopt years later, a fierce gaze, a dark cape, and an air of a messianic leader. It has been theorized that this painting may have influenced the construction of Hitler's public image, as he often saw himself as a predestined figure meant to lead Germany into a new Reich. Additionally, as an interesting fact, the painting was created in 1889, the same year Hitler was born. This small coincidence has led to it being referred to online as the painting that predicted disaster, as if Franz von Stuck had somehow foreseen the future, portraying this man as a terrifying leader before his time. It would not be surprising if this painting, laden with Nordic mysticism and Germanic symbolism, resonated with him in a special way, but we will never truly know. Before we continue, I want to remind you that if you're a lover of art and would like to have a historical piece in your home, you can visit our catalogue, where you'll find a selection of artworks you can collect for a lifetime. Shipping is free worldwide, and by purchasing from the store, you'll be supporting me in continuing to create videos like this. The link is in the description. Hitler's admiration for Franz von Stuck was not limited to his youth. Decades later, during World War II, the Nazi regime compiled the Gottbegnadeten-Liste, list of those blessed by God, a document listing the names of artists deemed indispensable to the spirit of the Third Reich. This list was compiled in 1944 by Joseph Goebbels, Minister of Propaganda, with the aim of protecting certain artists from military service and ensuring their artistic production during wartime. It included musicians, architects, sculptors, and painters whose works were seen as extensions of Nazi ideology. Among these painters was Franz von Stuck, which confirms that his art was not only admired by Hitler, but also by the cultural elite of Nazism. It is important to note that being included in this list did not just signify prestige, but also immunity. While thousands of German soldiers were dying on the front lines and Germany suffered constant bombings, the artists on the Degenerate were able to continue working without fear of being drafted. They were considered part of the nation's soul, and their work had to be preserved at all costs. While painters like Franz von Stuck were celebrated and protected, other artists were persecuted and censored under the label of Entartete Kunst, or Degenerate Art. The concept of degenerate art was promoted by the Nazi regime to discredit any artistic expression they deemed contrary to their ideology. Under this label fell movements such as Expressionism, Cubism, Surrealism, Dadaism, and even some branches of symbolism that did not align with the aesthetic and propagandistic values of the Third Reich. Artists like Otto Dix, Ernst Ludwig Kirchner, Emil Nolde, Wassily Kandinsky, Paul Klee, and Max Ernst were banned, their works confiscated, and in some cases destroyed. The Nazis even organized an exhibition of degenerate art in 1937, where these works were displayed with mocking and derogatory descriptions to discredit them in the eyes of the German public. Unlike these artists, Franz von Stuck was celebrated and promoted. His style fit the Nazi aesthetic because it depicted powerful figures, Germanic mythology, and an ideal of heroic grandeur that resonated with the Third Reich's ideological vision. However, this does not mean that his art was originally conceived with political or ideological intentions. It is crucial to remember that Franz von Stuck died in 1928, long before the Nazis came to power. His inclusion in the list and his recognition by Hitler were the result of the Nazi regime appropriating his work, rather than an indication of any political affinity from Stuck himself. The case of Franz von Stuck serves as a clear example of how totalitarian regimes can appropriate art and give it an ideological meaning. The Nazis did not just promote their own concept of ideal art, but they also rewrote art history to fit their narrative. Painters like Caspar David Friedrich, Arnold Böcklin, and Franz von Stuck were exalted as forerunners of German nationalist art, even though during their lifetimes they had no connection to Nazi ideology. What's more, some of Franz von Stuck's works, such as The Sin, carry a strong erotic and symbolist charge that, in another era, might have been considered transgressive or even contrary to the conservative values of Nazism. But Hitler and his followers selectively reinterpreted these works to fit their worldview. I'd love to hear your opinion about this artist and whether you think it's possible that this man might have been inspired by this painting to shape his image. After all, Hitler was passionate about art, and where else would an art student find inspiration if not in art itself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video, and don't forget to visit inspiraggio.com to purchase your favorite painting. See you soon.